So you finished the first 8 episodes of Sonic Prime, and now you need something to hold you over until the next batch. Whenever that is. Well, you've come to the right place. Hey, it's Patrice, Screen Rant's designated Sonic guy, and here's some things you might have missed in Sonic's latest animated adventure. The sacred art of creating a strong password is one that not many have mastered. And unfortunately, Team Sonic is going to need much more training if they want to make sure Eggman doesn't get all their social security numbers and steal their identities. Specifically, our little buddy Tails is going to need some help with that, in both his original universe and the New York one. Because in episode 1, Sonic correctly guesses that the passcode for both of his labs is 1992, the release year of Tails' debut game, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Now in Tails' defense here, he's only working with a 4-pin passcode, so there's not really much he could do here to make this deep web fortified. But the least he could have done is avoided using his video game birth year. I mean, that's like the easiest thing to guess. Tails isn't the only character whose debut year in the Sonic franchise gets referenced via some kind of code, because the greatest character of all time, Big the Cat, and if you disagree, you're wrong, is gonna get his time to shine as well. During Sonic's torture/testing montage, while the Chaos Council are investigating the source of his energy, one of their badniks interrogates Big for being seen with Sonic. When approaching Big, the badnik addresses him as Denizen 1998.
Denizen 1998, you were seen with the blue hedgehog.
Not only does this reveal that the world of New York is dystopian to the point of every inhabitant being identified through their code, but also it's an Easter egg to the year of Big's debut game, Sonic Adventure. Released in 1998, Sonic Adventure was Sonic's first foray into the next generation of consoles during that period. I wanted to say that it was the first 3D Sonic game, and Adventure is widely considered that by most, but that achievement goes to Sonic the Fighter, since it was the first title to actually use 3D models. Adventure is the game that established Big as the lovable dope we know him as today, even if his initial reception wasn't the greatest. You know, now that I think about it, Big the Cat didn't get much screen time throughout this season. As a matter of fact, he was probably less important narratively than Jacksepticeye's cameo as Jack the Pirate. Oh wait, you didn't know that Jacksepticeye was in the show? Oh, yeah, Jacksepticeye's in the show. If you're a fan of Jax, you're probably well aware that he's done his fair share of voice acting work. He's mainly done stuff for video games like Bendy and the Ink Machine, Murder House, and even Poppy Playtime, but Sonic Prime marks one of the few times that he's appeared in a film or TV series. Jack even addressed his cameo in a Twitter thread created by his news fan page, responding excitedly that he can finally speak about his work on the show. When exactly did he show up, you ask? In episode 7 with all the pirate stuff, of course. When Sonic is sent to the Pirates corner of the Shatterverse, we get to hear his performance when the main cast encounters Knuckles' old crew and their new captain, Captain Jack.
Nothing beats sticking it to our old captain. And these tasty sea dogs.
And I think it's fair to say that Jack's voice is perfectly suited for that role. On the other hand, something not as well fitting is Sonic's middle name. Depending on the region or device you watch the series, you may have encountered a Netflix description that says that Sonic's middle name is actually Maurice.
I thought your middle name was The.
Yeah, I thought it was The too. The name might seem a little random, but it's actually a nod to the old Archie comics. In issue number 0, Sonic tells his friend Sally Acorn that his middle name is actually Maurice. And this nod makes sense when you consider one of the original writers of the Archie comics, Ian Flynn, was brought on as a consultant for the writing of the series. Really cool side note, this marks the very first time that the Archie comics are acknowledged outside of their medium. We're not done with Sonic's name just yet, because if his Archie middle name is acknowledged, then the rest of his name needs to be mentioned as well. Even though it never actually appeared in the comics, the Archie writers are on record stating that Sonic's full name was intended to be Ogilvy Maurice Hedgehog. Yeah, Sonic is a great nickname because what the hell is that? So we all know that Tails' origin dates back to 1992, but the series goes even further and in episode 1 illustrates with pixel animation Tails' actual origin story. This consists of him being bullied by some mean old one-tailed foxes for having 2 tails. Those damn normies. This pixelated sequence plays out in the exact same way it does in Sonic Origins' animated depiction of the same events. Everything from Tails' tails being pulled, Sonic knocking out the bullies with his speed, and even Sonic's wink is shown in Sonic Prime, which makes this both a direct reference to Sonic Origins and Sega attempting to keep some continuity throughout the canon, which they haven't been the best at doing in the past. Isn't it nice to see our boy Shadow doing his thing in animated form once again? His graceful air shoe gliding, his action-packed fight sequences, his Hold up, is that the Chaos Control pose from Sonic Adventure 2? Bro, that's the Chaos Control pose from Sonic Adventure 2. Holy shit! That's right, everyone. Shadow is back and here to also join the crew of characters who referenced their debut game. Episode 2 opens with Shadow roaming around Green Hill just being cool, as illustrated by him destroying every rock in his path to find the Chaos Emerald, and once he finds it, he strikes his iconic Chaos Control pose that first appeared in Sonic Adventure 2 after Sonic and Shadow first met. I don't know about you guys, but even though Shadow hasn't played too big of a role just yet, I'm hyped to see him come back and probably play a major role in the next part of the show. Honestly, Sonic Prime is probably the most game-accurate series we've gotten so far. Like I said before, Sega is really trying to pull all of its continuity together so that everything is seamless rather than all over the place like before. More evidence of this is when the Flickies are released from Badniks whenever they're destroyed in the show. These are actually blink and you miss it moments, as the Flickies being freed are never the focus of the scene and just fly away in the background during fight sequences. On your next watch through, try to see how many Flickies you can find. Back to the topic of the Sonic Adventure series, don't those propeller robots look a little bit familiar to you? They appear in both the New York and Pirate universes and are mainly fodder, but look similar to those propelling springs in the Skyrail level of Sonic Adventure 2. Now I understand that this one might be a reach, but the designs are similar enough for the connection to at least be considered. Another more clear reference to the Sonic Adventure series that isn't as much of a reach is seen in Sonic's shoes. No, I don't mean the design here or any of the upgrades Sonic gets in those games that make his shoes look cooler. What I'm referencing here is the fact that because of the Paradox Prism's energy stored within Sonic's shoes, it gives off a pulsating glow whenever he's near a shard. This pulsating glow is a reference to the treasure hunting stages in the Sonic Adventure games, where you would play as either Knuckles or Rouge and be tasked with finding 3 scattered shards of a Chaos Emerald. In these stages, whenever you were near an emerald shard, the emerald symbol would begin to pulsate, similar to how Sonic's shoes do the same thing when close to a prism shard in Sonic Prime.
Doctor, don't.
Whatevs.
Of course, that isn't the end of the gaming references. This is a Sonic Maurice Hedgehog series we're doing a video on. And yes, I refuse to say his first name again. I think Penders came up with that name anyway, so it's probably best that we avoid it. Out of all the Eggman variants that appear on the Chaos console, Dr. Deep is probably the best, just because of his dope Samurai Gundam. But that's not who this entry is about. Dr. Don't is often seen playing his futuristic dystopian Nintendo Switch, and if you get a close look at it, you'll be able to see that the character he's playing as is literally himself. Doesn't his character's ride look familiar though? That's because it's a version of the Egg Drillster, the first boss from Sonic 2. However, instead of it being a car, it takes the shape of the traditional Eggmobile we've seen with almost every iteration of the Doctor. Whoever programmed Dr. Dont's game was probably really onto something though when it comes to game references. Who am I kidding? It was definitely Dr. Don't who created the game, starring himself.
I totally called dibs on his quills.
There's another reference here to Sonic Generations, as Dont's game Overscreen is based on the one that you would encounter in that game, complete with the main character looking defeated while being highlighted by an invisible spotlight. Fun fact, this type of game over screen only appeared in one other Sonic game outside of Generations, as a majority of Sonic game over screens consisted of the words game over appearing over wherever you died in the level, or just some black screen giving you the chance to retry or quit. The only other Sonic game besides Generations with a spotlight effect is Sonic the Fighters. Let's talk about origin stories again, because we've got a newcomer joining our crew of character origin references. This time is no other than the Red Echidna warrior himself, Knuckles. In episode 7 of the series, when Sonic meets Dread, Knuckles' pirate captain who lost his vigor variant, in which we're treated with another pixelated flashback to when Sonic met Knuckles. This sequence is obviously a reference to how the two met in Sonic 3, but with some things changed here and there. First of all, they're not outside of Angel Island like in the games. Instead, the two find themselves in a cave area that looks reminiscent of the Mystic Cave Zone in Sonic 2. But what stands out as a Sonic 3 reference in particular is the way Knuckles pops out of the ground and stops Sonic in his tracks while laughing at him. There's also a small reference to the Sonic 2 movie here, where Knuckles uses his strength to block Sonic's spin dash attack. Knuckles has still been tricked by Eggman to think that Sonic is an enemy who's after the Master Emerald, so it seems like the writers decided to pull inspiration from a multitude of sources for the scene. Maybe this will be the definitive Knuckles backstory going forward. Alright, let's take a little break from the game references for a brief moment, because there's a few things to discuss that aren't nods to the games, believe it or not. If you've seen the concept art before the show came out, you may be familiar with this piece that depicts Sonic hiding from Thorn Rose, a plotline that played out in episodes 4 and 5. The thing is though, the final design for Thorn Rose is much different than the one we saw in the concept art. Instead of Amy's hair being all pink like usual, she's rocking some wooden spike covers and beads. Her outfit used to be a leopard print skirt with more modern looking boots, but now has a much more prehistoric vibe going on. She even has markings on her arms and cheeks. Overall, it seems like they did a complete overhaul to her design here. I can understand why they would want to do more with the initial work for Thorn, considering she's the antagonistic force for these episodes. But let us know how you guys feel about the initial design compared to the final. This one might also be a reach, but if you zoom in and squint your eyes just enough around the 20-minute mark on episode 1, one of the citizens of New York looks just like Blaze the Cat from behind. This character has the same spikes, ponytail, and color scheme as the iconic Sonic character. If this is her, could this be hinting at the character finally making her animated debut in the near future? And you can't have Blaze without Silver, so maybe both of them will show up sometime in Sonic Prime. One can only hope. Now that I think about it, episode 1 probably has more Easter eggs than every other episode. Another one we found also happens during Sonic's testing / torture montage scene. Right before the Chaos Council begins their testing, Dr. Dunnett says,
"Those in favor of stress testing this blue rabbit, say yes."
The blue rabbit remark here is in reference to Sonic's original design as, well, a blue rabbit. You see, before Sega landed on Sonic as their mascot, they were toying with the idea of a blue rabbit who could pick up objects with his ears and throw it at enemies. However, they also wanted speed to be a main mechanic of the game so that players wouldn't get bored with the levels. It turned out the blue rabbit style of gameplay didn't mesh well with the core speed mechanic, so they'd redesigned the character into the blue blur we're all familiar with today. But they haven't forgotten about the hedgehog's roots, as seen by this tiny Easter egg to the rabbit all these years later.
In your dreams, you bring it, I break it, Eggman. That's the game.
Alright, enough with the non-gaming references. Let's get back into the meat and potatoes of this video. Like I said before, episode 1 probably has the most references and Easter eggs in the series. One more happens during the flashback sequence where Sonic is battling the Eggman-less Eggman robot. While taunting the Mad Doctor, Sonic quickly performs a series of breakdancing moves, and while completely fitting for his character, isn't totally random. This breakdancing sequence is the exact same one that Sonic does when completing a modern level in Sonic Generations. I'm just saying, Sonic would have fit in well with the B-boys of the 90s. There are many iconic sound effects that originate from the Sonic series, from the ring sound in the spring to the air bubbles and Sonic's iconic
You're too slow.
Sonic probably has some of the most memorable sound effects of any game series ever. One that might go overlooked, and maybe it doesn't depending on how big of a fan you are, is the spike noise. You know, that noise that plays when you accidentally touch a spike in the 2D games? Man, those spikes were big. Well, that spike sound effect gets used in Sonic Prime. In episode 4, while running away from Thorn Rose, Sonic falls into some thorny vines while saying that he hates spikes. When he falls into the vines, you can hear the spike noise that accompanies Sonic's pain. Again, this helps to make this show one of the most accurate to the games we've had so far. Off topic, but Avenger references are everywhere. Okay, maybe not everywhere, but a lot of media makes nods to the franchise because it's one of the biggest things in our culture at the moment. Sonic Prime is no different, as Sonic takes the time to recite Captain America's iconic line,
I could do this all day.
While Captain America doesn't own this phrase, and other characters can definitely say it without it being an Avengers reference, what makes this an actual nod is that Sonic's American voice actor, Roger Craig Smith, actually has played the Captain in the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon. So this line ends up being both an Avengers reference and a shout out to Smith.
You left the door open.
Speaking of Roger Craig Smith, he's back as the voice of Sonic in Sonic Frontiers. And whoa, wouldn't you know it? There's a Sonic Frontiers reference in the show. In episode 8, while the characters are racing to the shard, you can see multiple puzzle statues from Sonic Frontiers. Since Prime and Frontiers were in development simultaneously, the Sonic Prime team probably got told by Sega to include these as a way to further strengthen the continuity. Though those statues are pretty hard to see and you'll need to pause your screen to catch the reference here.
Whoa, you really are a baby.
After taking in everything else on this list, it's probably more than apparent that the story of Sonic Prime takes place in the same canon as the games. From Tails' and Knuckles' backstories to the Sonic Frontier statues appearing, it's clear that Sega is trying their best to tie all of Sonic's media together. I mean, hell, we might have even gotten some confirmation that the Archie comics are somehow connected with everything, considering the reference to his middle name. But Sonic Prime's place in the Sonic universe is actually confirmed in a Netflix interview with the executive producer of the series, Logan McPherson. In the interview, Logan states that the series takes place in the same timeline as the games, so they had to be faithful in that regard. So all the Easter eggs that I've mentioned so far that have to do with the story or setting of the games are purposeful. It's really great to see the Sonic universe taking this direction.
Gimme!
Back off.
If y'all are regular viewers of Screen Rant Sonic videos, which is an extremely niche thing to be a fan of, honestly, but we appreciate you, then you might know that I'm a big fan. Hey, I mean, even though he hasn't played a huge narrative role just yet, I'm just happy that the best Sonic character is back in more ways than one. Anyway, let us know what you guys thought about Prime. Did you like it? Did you love it? Where do you guys think it'll go from here? And are you excited to see that clash between Sonic and Shadow? Alright, we'll see you guys next time.
Home doesn't exist anymore because of you!